Dear friends, you must have heard about many powerful leaders who send chills down the spines of people in general. But have you ever heard about a leader who is praised by almost every single person in the country? Let us talk about the most powerful person in Russia right now, Vladimir Putin. From being a spy to becoming president of Russia, his story is fascinating. He is both the hero and villain of his story. He was never scared of anyone, could defend himself against every opposition, and became immensely popular among the masses. Putin has been in power since 2000. Though a lot of changes occurred across the world, the only thing that stayed constant was Putin. Surprisingly, three prime ministers changed in India during this time, while the United States saw presidents such as George Bush, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and Joe Biden. Atal Bihari Vajpayee was the Prime Minister of India in 2000 when Putin became the president for the first time. Then we had Manmohan Singh, and after Singh came Modi. Modi was re-elected in 2019. Putin was very much aware of these changes that were happening around the world, but he did not change his stance. Putin amended the law a number of times to stay in power. Putin entered Russian politics in 1991 when he was appointed deputy mayor of the municipal corporation of St. Petersburg. He used it to work as a spy for the KGB. He became president in 2000. He was re-elected with a more significant number of votes in 2004. As per the constitution of the country, one can serve as president for 4 years, and no one can occupy the post for more than 2 terms. Hence, he had to quit the presidential post in 2008 and made his close friend Dmitry Medvedev his successor during his tenure. The term of the president was extended to 6 years. The opposition did raise a voice against it and called Medvedev a mere puppet at the hands of Putin, but the Russian public chose him again as president in 2012 for the third time and continued to stay there till 2018. In March 2018, he was again elected as the president with 75% of the votes in his favor. Putin was all set to create history and was emerging as a powerful leader. He amended the constitution one more time and declared himself president until 2036. He can participate in the 2024 and 2030 elections too. He has made many tough decisions, and attacking Ukraine is a case in point. He had earlier attacked Crimea and made it a part of Russia. It sent its army to the Syrian civil war in 2011. His decisions often shocked the world, and he faced the wrath of the entire world. Nonetheless, he was unconcerned. Putin is known as the Tsar of Russia, who completely finishes the opposition and the leader the country loves. America is considered a superpower, but Russia has also emerged as another superpower. It has the world's second largest army after the United States. It produces 10.7 million barrels of oil on a daily basis. Russia is bolstering its defense sector and has invested billions of dollars in it. Russia has emerged as a superpower with dedication, and it is also a permanent member of the UN, along with the US, UK, China, and France, and it has veto power. Besides being an influential leader, Putin also has an amusing persona. Hence, he earned the moniker of Volodya, which means universal ruler. Though Putin occupies the top position today, his journey to the top was not easy. He was born into a low-income family in Leningrad on October 7, 1952. It is known as St. Petersburg now, and it is the very place where he entered politics. His father was a part of the Soviet Navy, and his mother was a worker in a factory. His family was impoverished, and he spent his childhood in poverty. He must not have thought that in a few decades he would become one of the richest people in the world. When Putin was young, his neighbors' kids, who were older and stronger than him, used to beat him, and to take them on, he learned judo. His father wanted him to learn boxing, but he chose martial arts instead, which completely changed the course of his life. This training gave him confidence that he could face any challenge in his life. He used to love watching detective movies as a child. He used to read detective novels too, and from then on, he wanted to be a detective. He wanted to be a secret agent of the Soviet Union. At 16, he went to the KGB office and declared he wanted to be a spy. They initially took it as a juvenile act, but after realizing his seriousness about it, a training officer instructed him to study law if he wanted to become a spy. Putin studied law for 7 years, and after attaining the degree, he again reached the KGB office. He started training for the KGB and made it on the first attempt. The KGB is considered one of the most dangerous intelligence units, and getting a job there was like a dream come true for Putin. He joined the KGB in 1975 and was sent to Leningrad for training, where he learned things ranging from using weapons to flying aircraft. He was sent to Germany on his first mission. He remained a spy in a foreign country for 15 years. When he was a spy in Germany, it was split into two parts, East and West Germany. Both parts were separated by a wall called the Berlin Wall. While East Germany was a Russian supporter, West Germany was an American supporter. When there was a revolution in East and West Germany, they collectively broke the wall in 1989 and entire Germany became one. The Soviet Union was completely shattered after the demolition of the wall. On the night the Soviet Union split, its flag was replaced with the one of Russia. The following day, the dissolution of the Soviet Union was announced, and it was divided into 15 different countries, including Russia. People were extremely angry with Russia, and the KGB office in East Germany was surrounded by an angry public. At this time, Putin was inside the KGB office and was burning important papers, lest they fall into the wrong hands. There were 4 other people and a guard in the office. He called Moscow for help, but to no avail. Still, he did not panic. After burning the papers, he came out in uniform and was immediately surrounded by a huge crowd. He kept calm and told the people surrounding the office that he had guards who would shoot them dead if they did not desist from their pursuit. Hearing this, the crowd ran away in fear, and Putin could also leave Germany unscathed. During this time, he saved the lives of his teammates. He served in the KGB until 1989. He retired as a lieutenant colonel. Then he entered into Russian politics. To flourish in politics, he used his KGB image to the hilt, and his KGB experience came in very handy to get into politics. This was just the beginning of his long political career. We shall learn more about it in the next episode. It has been 9 years since Putin came to Russia, and he has been enhancing his political career. Thus, while playing on the back foot, he realized it was time he went onto the front foot and hit 4s and 6s. When he came into power, he became Deputy Prime Minister on August 9, 1999, and on August 16th of the same month, he became Prime Minister by getting 233 votes in his favor. He served as President Boris Yeltsin's advisor and became one of the most dependable men. President Yeltsin was so impressed with Putin that he once mentioned that he saw Putin as his heir apparent. When Putin became Prime Minister, he started working on Russia's law and order situation, which was badly affected after the USSR split. Boris Yeltsin quit as president, and the entire responsibility lay with Putin. He became acting president. It is said that the moment he got the highest power, he removed all the corruption charges against Boris Yeltsin. Putin was not someone who would settle for being an acting president. He wanted more and fought elections in the year 2000, and his dream came true. He became the president of Russia. The scars of serial blasts in 1999 in St. Petersburg and Moscow were still raw, and a terrorist group called Chechnya was held responsible for the ghastly blasts. He avenged it by attacking this terrorist group and included it in the Russian Union in 2003. This irked many countries, and he faced a lot of opposition from many countries across the world. But the Russian population stood by him. This was the beginning of many tough decisions he would make during his tenure. After finishing his term in 2004, he was re-elected, this time with a greater number of votes. According to the Russian constitution, one cannot be president for more than 2 terms. But this was amended during Dmitry Medvedev's tenure as president, who was a close friend of Putin. Putin was believed to be the de facto president, and Medvedev was the actual president. Russia was going through a financial crisis around this time, and it defeated NATO supporter Georgia, which adversely affected ties with the US. But the Putin-Medvedev duo could come out of this situation. Russia used its stabilization fund meticulously and resurrected its financial position, which received applause from the World Bank. On September 24, 2011, Medvedev declared that he would not run for president again, paving the way for Putin to run for the position again. He received support from Medvedev and suggested his name for the presidential post. On the one hand, Putin had scores of supporters. On the other hand, he had many detractors too. Many protesters arranged a rally in Rhodes holding anti-Putin banners. This was the biggest anti-Putin rally ever seen, but nothing could affect Putin's overwhelming popularity. When elections were held on March 4, 2012, Putin was again elected as president for the third time. It is not easy to occupy the highest position in a country like Russia for a long time. Putin has remained in power and become more potent with each passing day. We will get to know more about his journey as president in the forthcoming episodes. Putin has been in power for the last 22 years and has cemented his place. He could choke down all the protests against him. Having said that, he is still popular among the masses. Some call him a dictator and some call him a liberal. When he became president in the year 2000, Russia was going through a financial crisis, but Putin stabilized the economy, which naturally won the hearts of Russians, and he was re-elected in the year 2004. Putin was enjoying the taste of success, and he did not want to let it go anytime soon. As already mentioned, no president ever stayed for more than 2 terms. Putin came up with a solution for this too. He suggested his close friend Dmitry Medvedev as president, who in turn suggested Putin's name for the prime minister post. This meant Putin would be the de facto president. In 2012, Putin again got the chance to become president and received massive support from the people. He remained in the post for 6 years until the Russian constitution was amended. This happened during Medvedev's tenure as president, and Putin is believed to be instrumental in it. Putin was the president until 2018. The most significant victory during this tenure was the inclusion of Crimea into the Russian Union, which made him the face of the Russian population. He became president once more in 2018 and will stay till 2024. Putin wanted a lot more. When he came into power for the 4th time, he made use of the constitution to suit his convenience. A proposal was made before the Russian parliament's lower house that Putin will be allowed to run in 2 more elections. This would mean he would stay in power until 2036 because his victory is almost guaranteed whenever he runs for office. Putin himself signed this amended constitution. It is said that this proposal was put on a public platform for voting, and 75% voted in its favor. Because of the COVID protocol, this voting continued for 7 days. Some protests were held in St. Petersburg, and they demanded that this could be rigged and not completely neutral. The opposition alleged that people were forced into voting by bribing them. Bribes ranged from cars to flats. Protesters also alleged that government employees were coerced into voting in the government's favor, and that even top officials were bribed. The probe into these allegations lasted 7 days, but to no avail. Putin was just not affected by it at all. If Putin indeed gets to serve till 2036, he will be the longest serving president of Russia. Stalin and Peter were the ones who had long tenures of service before Putin. If the voting trends of the last 10 years are anything to go by, Putin remains the most popular leader. Putin faced many corruption charges, including the murder of an opposition leader. We will know more about the corruption charges leveled against him. Leave aside a 4-year term, Putin has ruled Russia For the past 18 years, though he did many constructive things, he faced opposition and serious corruption charges. He was even accused of using the constitution to suit his convenience. He has faced allegations such as taking bribes, rigging elections, and using government funds for personal purposes. Some think that Putin has properties in the names of his daughters and a few relatives, which he has carefully shielded. When he came to Russia from Germany in 1990, he held a responsible post in the Municipal Corporation of St. Petersburg, where he faced allegations of bribery for the first time, which were found correct. Still, he was able to get away scot-free because of his close bond with the then mayor, and he shifted to Moscow. He joined Boris Yeltsin cabinet in the year 1997 as an advisor. Putin was highly ambitious and always eyed the presidential post. He fought elections in the year 2000 for the presidential position and won with 53% of the votes. He stabilized the shaky economy of Russia, through which he won the confidence of the Russian public. The Russian public voted for their president one more time in 2004 with a greater number of votes. He used his immense power and got the tenure of the president extended by 2 more years. He was the prime minister from 2008 to 2012 and made his friend Dmitry Medvedev the president. When he became president in 2012 for the third time, the government faced many corruption charges. When advocate Alexei Navalny started talking against the government, he was considered Putin's greatest nemesis. He had an organization called the Anti-Corruption Foundation, which was shut down for being run as an extremist group. He spread things about Putin's corrupt ways through his YouTube channel and blog and gradually grew popular among the masses. But this was limited to Leningrad and Moscow. Putin had tremendous support in the interior areas of Russia. In 2012, the famous US newspaper, The Wall Street Journal, carried the headline, "Man Putin Fears Most." Alexei fought the election for mayor, but lost to Putin's candidate, and he alleged that Putin had rigged it. The government booked him in many cases, which ultimately cancelled his nomination for the presidential election when he wished to fight for the post. Alexei called this a criminal conspiracy and called Putin a dictator. He accused Putin of abusing the legal system and playing on the emotions of the Russian people. Far too many charges were leveled against Alexei, and he was sentenced to jail for 5 years, after which he was kept under house arrest. He again started talking about Putin after being released from prison. It is believed that he was sentenced to jail because of his protests against Putin, and even attempts to poison him were also made. He went to Germany for his treatment and returned to Moscow in 2021. He was again taken into custody because of the many cases he was booked under. President Putin has also been accused of murdering his protesters, but none of these allegations could ever be proved. Sergei Yushchenko, a Russian army colonel, alleged that the 1999 bomb blasts were Putin's plan to get political mileage. He wanted to bring liberalism to Russia because he thought Putin was a dictator. He was about to go on a pro-liberalism rally when he was shot dead. He had incriminating evidence against Putin, which he was about to make public. The US government accused Putin of amassing huge amounts of black money and investing in energy firms that the world has no clue. Russian political experts also echoed the above and said that his investments in these energy firms are worth £27 billion. Putin is also accused of allowing government tenders to those who would benefit him. Over the last 22 years, many accusations have been leveled against Putin, but none of those can be proved. When someone is in power, charges against them are natural, but none of these things could affect Putin, and he continued to be in control. Putin is very well known for his luxurious lifestyle, and there is no limit to his wealth. He gets a salary of $2.4 lakh as President of Russia. Forbes magazine has featured his name as one of the most popular leaders in 2018. He is always in the media for his luxurious lifestyle, from driving submarines to participating in bikers' rallies and swimming like a professional swimmer. He has many facets, and these pictures are constantly trending on social media. According to the news, he spends a whopping rupees 15 crore on himself annually. He is recognized as one of the world's wealthiest people. As per media reports, he owns property worth $200 billion. British media claims that Putin owns a building worth £74 billion named Putin's Palace. This came to light when his bitter rival, Alexei, alleged that this building was part of his ill-gotten money. It is said that this palace was built near the shores of the Black Sea. He owns an expensive super yacht with a bedroom, a swimming pool, and a helipad. Besides all this, Putin has 20 bungalows, 58 aircraft, and a collection of 700 luxurious cars. When he flies, he prefers to use the Flying Kremlin, his special aircraft, worth approximately 390 crores. This aircraft has all the luxuries of this world. This was built considering Putin's personality and is known as President Putin's Flying Office. It has a gold toilet worth 35 lakhs. This plane has a conference room, 3 bedrooms, a gym, and a bar. It also has a laser anti-missile protection system, so it is supposed to be very safe. Putin can control the army by just sitting in this aircraft. He has such technology through which he can send messages to any corner of the world. President Yeltsin used this first, and now Putin is using it after making the required modifications. Putin is multi-talented. He knows how to operate all types of weapons. He has been a spy, a martial arts black belt holder, and an influential leader, all rolled into one. He learned to fly aircraft when he was a spy in the KGB, and a picture of him flying a plane during his spy days was leaked and got viral. He has experience driving Formula One racing cars and submarines too. He is known to be fond of weapons too, and it is believed that he tests any new weapon that comes into the country. He is very fitness conscious, even at the age of 70. He works out and swims for 2 hours a day, and he has shown his macho avatar to the world quite a few times, such as jumping into a snow-covered lake and swimming in it. Whenever he goes on a vacation, he indulges in some adventure or other. Recently, he had an adventure with Bear Grylls in the famous Discovery show Man vs. Wild. He loves playing outdoor games too, and can often be seen playing ice hockey. He loves hunting too. He speaks German. He learned English after becoming president. He is seen conversing in English with US leaders. He has used the services of a translator quite a few times. When he arrived in India in 2021, his speech was translated. When Queen Elizabeth II lost her mother, Putin sent a condolence message in English, and this was the first time he spoke in English on a public platform. He speaks Swedish too. This is all about Putin's lifestyle. He is very lively, but he has always kept his private life a secret, despite always being active on social media. In the next episode, we will learn more about his family and love life. It is rather strange that President Putin, though very active on social media, his family is always away from the media glare. He evades questions about his family. According to the rumors, he met Lyudmila at a theater through a common friend when he was a spy for the KGB. Friendship blossomed between them, and they tied the knot in 1983. Lyudmila was a flight attendant when Putin was a spy. They had 2 daughters, Maria and Katerina. From 1990 to 1994, Lyudmila worked as a professor at a German university. After 30 years of association, they were divorced. Nobody knows the reason behind it. Lyudmila has remarried now. His elder daughter was born in 1985 in Leningrad, and the younger in Moscow a year later. After Putin came to Germany in 1995, his daughters also enrolled in school, but after he became president, their regular school was discontinued and they had home tuition. When they grew up and it was time to go to college, they enrolled under fake identities, and they never once revealed that they were Putin's daughters. Both are now pretty successful in their respective careers. Maria is a medical researcher who graduated from St. Petersburg University. She studied biology and completed medical studies. She has written many medical books. She married a Dutch businessman and had a daughter, but got divorced later. The younger daughter is a renowned belly dancer and made a name for herself as a rock and roll dancer. She got married to Putin's friend's son, Kirill Shamalov, who was named the youngest billionaire in Russia. Shamalov was an economic advisor to Putin's government, but the two have now split. The wedding was celebrated with a lot of pomp at the Sky Resort of St. Petersburg. The case of Katrina came into the limelight for the first time when President Putin declared that the first COVID vaccine would be tested on his daughter. Putin has a Casanova image and had affairs with many girls before his divorce. He had an affair with 31-year-old gymnast Alina Kabayeva, which he had declared publicly. They were spotted with wedding drinks, but Putin completely denied it. There was another rumor that he had an affair with his housekeeping staff and had a daughter too, whom Putin never showed to the world. When he faced corruption charges, one of the allegations was that he blew government money on his girlfriends. Putin was never serious about his love life. He had many affairs, but he neither married any of them, nor did he ever officially confirm any of his relationships. None knows who is in his life now. Though his personal life has always been under wraps, his political life was always in the public glare. Stay tuned to learn how he became president by being a KGB spy. For the last 22 years, politics has revolved around Putin, and he has cultivated an image of the people's person. He meticulously used the media too. Putin is also known for his tough decisions because he never backs out once he makes a decision, regardless of the opposition he faces. Be it the attack on Chechnya or including it in the Russian Union, he took tough decisions which irked many. Now he wants to have Ukraine in the Russian Union. The war against Ukraine started in 2014 when Russia included Crimea, but it was a silent one. It reached violent proportions in 2022 when Russia inserted its army into Ukraine. Now Ukraine is completely shattered from all corners. Many countries banned Russia, but Putin did not budge an inch. After the USSR split, Russia was always considered a powerful country, but it became politically and economically weak after the split. To resurrect the situation, he brought back its lost glory and strengthened his position in the process. After the 1999 series of blasts allegedly carried out by Chechnya, Putin attacked the Chechnya group and included it in the Russian Union. He made Almat Kadyrov the Chechnya head when he became president. He was very close to Putin. In 2003, a poll was taken in which people considered Chechnya very much part of Russia. This was a political masterstroke because Russians believed Putin was their only savior, and the media bolstered this image. Everything fell into place for Putin. On February 26, 2014, it attacked Crimea and took control over its government office, which was part of Ukraine. He sent the army to Crimea in March 2014, citing the safety of the large Russian contingent there. On March 6, 2014, the Crimea government accepted defeat and its parliament voted to make it part of the Russian Union. Based on public voting, Crimea was part of the Russian Union on March 18, 2014. Interestingly, Crimea was part of Russia in the 18th century, but it was gifted to Ukraine in 1954. The world was shocked by this move by Putin and banned Russia too. But none of it affected Putin and Russia. And instead of getting weaker, it became even stronger. Not just Russia, but the entire world witnessed Putin's power. Boris Nemtsov, a bitter rival of Putin's, was assassinated in 2015. He believed that including Crimea in Russia was done with a selfish motive, and he was about to reveal something in this regard. But before he could do any such thing, he was murdered. In his third term as president, he completely banned those who indulged in gay propaganda. He prohibited the gay parade for 100 years. which received support from the church. A Russian court refused to legalize same-gender marriage in 2020. For 22 years, Putin completely thrashed and obliterated the opposition. He completely controls even the media. In the next episode, we shall learn about Indo-Russian relations. India became independent in 1947 and had political, economic, and defense ties with the USSR. The relationship did not get affected even after the USSR split. During the 1971 Indo-Pak War, Russia completely supported India, and India ultimately won. Both signed a 20-year cooperation agreement. The two countries' friendship lasted for 75 years. The bond has stayed strong despite many ups and downs. India bought its first submarine in 1967 from the Soviet Union. There was a slump in trade between these two countries from 2013 to 2017, but it picked up in 2017. The summit in 2021 bolstered the ties between Putin and Prime Minister Narendra Modi. They met earlier in 2018 in Russia, where they talked about many issues. Putin conferred Narendra Modi with the Order of St. Andrew the Apostle, the highest award in Russia. This was presented to Narendra Modi to mark the strong ties both countries have had for many years. India regularly imports weapons from Russia, and the armies of both countries practice together. Both countries' troops, air, and naval forces participate in it. This is known as tri-service practice. Both countries' missile, fighter jet, and Sukhoi programs are part of this practice session in which both countries participate. India entirely depends on Russia for its submarine program, as 9 of its 14 submarines are brought from Russia. Both countries support each other in peacefully using nuclear power. India is setting up a nuclear power plant in Kudankulam with the support of Russia, and both countries are setting up a nuclear power project in Rupur, Bangladesh. The space organizations of both countries are working together on many projects. Interestingly, then Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee visited Russia in 2001, where Narendra Modi accompanied him as he was the Chief Minister of Gujarat back then. When Mr. Vajpayee was in talks with Putin, Mr. Modi was standing behind him, and neither Putin nor Modi must have thought that a few years later they would be standing next to each other as influential leaders of their respective countries. We get to see excellent chemistry between Putin and Narendra Modi. When Russia invaded Ukraine, India was under the glare of the entire world. India supported Russia and did not vote in the United Nations. Prime Minister Modi talked to Putin about the safe return of Indians to Ukraine. Putin cooperated with India. It was seen on television how Indians were coming out of Ukraine holding the Indian tricolor in their hands, and the Russian army was not harming them at all. The entire operation, named Operation Ganga, was under the supervision of Narendra Modi. Putin came to India in 2021 on a visit, cancelling visits to other countries. Due to the pandemic, the entire world came to a standstill, and because of COVID restrictions, none dared to visit another country. Putin visited India to attend a summit in Delhi. The war between Russia and Ukraine was very much on the borders of the countries, and Putin visited India as a result of good relations between both countries. This visit turned out to be crucial. PM Modi said the ties are going to get even stronger. During COVID, the government of both nations supported each other, and Indians living in Russia could only return safely because of the help and support provided by the Russian officials. During this summit, both talked about economic ties. PM Modi stated that India's financial and trade investments target in Russia is between $30 billion and $50 billion by 2025. Putin said that both countries are working to fight against terrorism. The trade between the countries has increased by 38%, and all efforts are being made to improve it even further. Both countries are exchanging technology to make the life of the citizens and trade easier. After Russia, the US is the second biggest exporter of weapons. India is Russia's biggest market. Over the last 20 years, Russia has had a 66.5% stake in the Indian defense sector. India is making weapons alongside Russia. Both countries had a 2+2 meeting in which the defense and foreign ministers met and signed an agreement. A deal of 5,000 crore rupees for the production of 6 lakh units of 203 assault rifles was signed, and they will be produced at Amethi in UP. Both countries would continue their ties for 10 years. India has developed its most effective missile program along with Russia. India will soon start exporting BrahMos missiles, jointly developed by both countries. One can gauge the strong bond between Russia and India by the fact that India bought the S-400 Triumph missile from Russia, despite the objections of the US. Both countries have a combined trade of around $10 billion, which is comparatively less than the trade with the US and China, which is worth $100 million. India imports mineral fuel, oil, and petroleum the most from Russia. Besides, India imports cement, plastic, fertilizer, precious stones, pearls, metals, paper, rubber, zinc, and copper. India exports iron, steel, pharmaceuticals, and telecommunication products, among other things, to Ukraine. Listen to the next episode to learn about the similarities and dissimilarities between Putin and Narendra Modi. After the invasion of Ukraine, the entire world learned about Putin's power. He did not budge an inch despite the opposition from France, the US, and Ukraine. Narendra Modi came into power in 2014 and emerged as one of the most influential leaders in the world. After he came into power, Indo-Russian relations grew stronger. Putin mentioned that he gets in touch with Narendra Modi occasionally. Both leaders are known for their tough decisions. Be it the Balakot airstrike or the Uri surgical strike, Narendra Modi made extremely tough decisions which made him very popular among the Indian public. One striking thing common to both leaders is that they both came from poor backgrounds and made it to the top based on sheer hard work and dedication. Another thing they have in common is that their families are always kept out of the spotlight, even though both are very active on social media. Both are willing to take terrorism head on. Both have unique hobbies. While Putin is into horse riding, swimming, and adventure sports, Modi practices yoga, and many pictures of him doing yoga are viral on social media. Modi's most expensive possession is the Mont Blanc pen, which was made in Germany and costs around 1.5 lakhs. It is a rare pen that is owned by very few celebrities such as Barack Obama, Amitabh Bachchan, and the Dalai Lama. There is no shortage of expensive things in Putin's life, as he leads a highly luxurious life. Putin works out for 2 hours daily, while Modi starts his day with Surya Namaskar and Pranayam, and he feels yoga gives him the energy to stay active throughout the day. When there are so many similarities, there are a few dissimilarities too. While Putin starts his day in the afternoon, Modi prefers waking up at 4 a.m. Putin starts working in the evening. Putin leads an opulent life, while Modi leads a simple and austere life. In the next episode, we shall learn about why Russia attacked Ukraine. The war between Russia and Ukraine has been trending in international media for quite some time. Russia has invaded Ukraine. There is destruction everywhere in Ukraine. There is probably not a single city in Ukraine that can be called safe. But why did Russia attack a small country like Ukraine? To find the answer to this question, we must go back 30 years. This war started in 1991 when the USSR was closed. Ukraine called itself an independent country, and a referendum was held in which Leonid Kravchuk was chosen as the first president. When Viktor Yushchenko became president in 2005, he first had the target of reducing Russian domination. He said Ukraine would be made part of NATO and the European Union. This did not go down well with Russia, as Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union before 1991. The relationship between the two countries soured from this point. NATO promised Ukraine that Ukraine would be included in it. But when Russia made Crimea part of the Russian Union, a war-like situation arose between the two countries. Ukraine started tilting towards the European Union, and even the US began to interfere in Ukraine's matters, which irked Putin. Volodymyr Zelensky became Ukraine's president in 2019, and the Orthodox Church also got recognition in the same year. Though both countries believe in the same religion, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church split from the Russian Orthodox Church. It started getting support from other countries and the US, which was unacceptable to Russia. Zelensky required the US to include Ukraine in NATO in 2021, to which the US agreed. Then Ukraine used Bayraktar TB2 drones, which Russia considered a threat. Hence, its ire against Ukraine grew even more. It started deploying its army in Ukraine and kept increasing its force. Ukraine was concerned about Russia's ever-increasing army of troops at the border and complained to America about it. America warned Russia against economic sanctions if it did not remove army troops from Ukraine's border. A meeting of Russian and US diplomats happened on January 10, 2022, but it did not yield any result. Soon Russia started making preparations to attack Ukraine. The Russian army reached Belarus on January 17th, and NATO also kept its forces on standby. However, Putin was not the one to take a backstep. The US officials also understood that a war was imminent. Hence, it asked its citizens in Ukraine to come back. 10 days after this incident, the Russian army started practicing nuclear weapons. Finally, the Russian army reached Ukraine on February 24th. The entire world was just a mute spectator, and none could do anything about it. Initially, Ukraine responded to Russia's onslaught. Indians in Ukraine could safely return thanks to a good relationship between Russia and India. President Zelensky went on to the roads to show solidarity with the people and sought help from European countries. It has been more than 7 months since the war between the two countries started, and none imagined it could last so long. The Russian army has captured most areas in and around Ukraine, and its capital Kyiv has become a barren wasteland. The Russian military also destroyed the next biggest city in Ukraine, Kharkiv, completely. Another city, Lviv, also met with a similar fate. The Russian army has entered 150 kilometers into the capital city and taken many cities under control. The inhabitants of these cities have left their homes and are being kept in shelters now. Some have sent their kids to other countries to ensure their safety. Though it is claimed that the citizens of Ukraine have not been harmed, the pictures tell a completely different story. Scores of innocent people appear to have been killed and tortured. War always leaves destruction in its wake. Innocent citizens have had to pay the price when wars have been fought throughout history. According to reports, approximately 35,000 citizens and 15,000 army personnel were killed in the conflict between Russian and Ukrainian troops. Around 80 million people had to leave their homes. 3 big buildings that were flourishing till recently now have a barren look. The impact of this war is not just felt in the respective countries. The entire world is experiencing it. The food supply chain is affected the most. Russia and Ukraine produce the most wheat and export it. Ukraine exports about 10% of the world's wheat, earning it the moniker breadbasket of the world. Besides, Ukraine produces corn, and around 15% of the world's corn exports are from Ukraine. This war has adversely affected sunflower oil production and supply. This led to inflation, and the entire world is beset with this problem. This war has not just been a food issue, but has affected other energy sectors too. Russia is the largest natural gas supplier and the second largest crude oil exporter. The European Union has also suffered a loss because of this. The entire world will find itself in dire straits if this war does not stop. But neither Russia nor Ukraine is willing to back out. Ukraine is getting a lot of support from Western countries, but the economic instability put forth by this war may force the Western countries to focus on their respective countries and withdraw support from Ukraine. Experts are of the opinion that if Russia is weakened at this stage, it may launch a nuclear attack which may give rise to a third world war. If a third world war indeed happens, it will be extremely dangerous for the entire world. This war has affected the international political equation like never before. Everyone is trying to prevent this war, but none has succeeded so far, and no solution is visible either. We shall learn about Russia's cultural, economic, and political aspects in the coming episode, so stay tuned. Russia is the biggest country in the world. Some parts of it are in Eastern Europe and some other parts in North Asia. It shares its borders with as many as 14 countries. It is a federal republic country and is very big, even by the area's criteria. It covers around 11% of the earth. It has a population of 146.8 million as per data collected in 2020. Moscow is the capital of Russia and also its economic epicenter. The president lives in the Kremlin, which is the name given to the president's palace. Russia has one upper house in parliament, the Federal Assembly, and the lower rung is known as the State Duma. The president has all the powers, and he is also the commander-in-chief of the army. The prime minister is ranked second, and the federal chief is ranked third. If something untoward happens to the president, the prime minister will take over. If the president and prime minister are not in a position to discharge their duties, the federal chief will take up the challenge. The Federal Council is highly influential. The Federal Council's permission must be sought if there is a need to apply army rule in the country. The Council's consent is also required to make decisions such as waging war against any nation, impeaching a president, or appointing judges to the court. The lower rung of the parliament, the State Duma, appoints the prime minister and the central bank chief. The bills that are passed in the Federal Council are first placed before the State Duma. It is forwarded to the Federal Council after seeking approval from the State Duma. Federal Council can only accept or reject the proposals sent by the State Duma and cannot alter them. Elections happen in 2 rounds in Russia. If no one gets a majority in the first round, they will have a second round to decide the winner. But such a contingency happens rarely. It happened way back in 1996 when Boris Yeltsin and Zyuganov were face to face. Boris finally became president. Voting in Russia happens pretty quickly and results can be known within hours. The Russian public in general is not too excited about elections as they feel as long as Putin is there, he will continue to stay in power and his opposition virtually does not exist. The Russian economy can be called a middle-income economy. When the USSR split with Russia, agriculture and industry were privatized. It faced a lot of opposition, but a tough decision was taken, keeping the welfare of the country in view. The Russian economy is based on expertise in oil, gas, agriculture, and weapons. The oil and gas industry is under government control, a major government revenue source. Russia has the world's second largest army. The Russian armed forces have an arsenal of nuclear weapons. Ballistic missiles, submarines, and high-tech weapons have made Russia a powerful country. Russia's defense budget was $61.7 billion in 2020. Russia has twice as many high-tech tanks as the United States. Russia currently has nearly 9 lakh active military personnel and over 4,000 aircraft. It exports weapons to many countries, and India is one of its major customers. Aside from that, they have a strong president who is tough as nails. For Russians, he is not just a man. He is Volodya, the ruler of the universe. And that was the story of how a spy became the most influential world leader. And even after 2 decades in the office, he is still going strong. We learned about his personal life and diplomatic relations between India and Russia. We hope you liked the series. If you have any questions or feedback, please drop a comment.